Since you mentioned that science is all about the learning the language, and that's an important skill to learn for aspiring scientists, what are some other pieces of advice you'd give to people who want to get into science as a field?
First, I would say I love my job as a scientist. I really, really love it. So I can't think of a better job, at least for me. But then it's important to follow it up with, well, why do I like it, right? Will this apply also to you or to someone else? So I love my job because, well, one, this is kind of superficial, but I love to travel. And, being a scientist, it takes you all over the world. And you get to, you do field work where you're in remote areas where nobody ever goes. But you also get to go look at collections in other museums all around the world. And you also get to travel for conferences. And so you just get to go places that you'd never think of, on your own, and like to cities that, maybe are a little bit off the beaten path, and you get to meet people from all over the world and eat foods from all over the world. And it's just really like, it's an adventure. Yeah. And then also, I really like that, science it's never boring because there's always it's constantly changing. Like that's what science is about. It's about change. Like whether it's a new fossil that we find that completely changes our interpretation of previous fossils, or whether somebody comes up with a new methodology to extract information from fossils that then again tells us something totally different. You're constantly learning new things or realizing the things that you had learned in the past. Now with new data, we realize we're wrong. And so it's exciting. There's always something new. And so it's not monotonous at all. I mean, in some ways, like there are monotonous aspects of it. Like when people picture a paleontologist, they're like, oh, you're out in the Gobi Desert digging for fossils. And it's like that, like maybe 2-3 weeks out of the year. The rest of the time I'm hunched in front of my computer. But at the same time, it's still, you're always learning new things. There's always new papers coming out. And I don't know, I find that really thrilling and exciting, and just knowing that there's like, what are you going to learn next? And what are, and like finding out that something that you thought was true for so long, finding out it was wrong. Like, I mean, that doesn't bother me. I'm like, I love it. I love that, like, that, try as hard as we can, we get things wrong. And like, to me, it's exciting when people come up with new forms of data that then completely change the way we think. And so, my advice would be, first of all, get experience like you're doing here in my lab, because, you may think you like paleontology, but then when you actually do it, you might find like, oh, well, there's aspects of doing this job that I don't like. So I think that's important. But it's also important to realize there's many ways to do one job. So, maybe you do field work, you go out digging for dinosaurs and you're like, I don't like this. I don't like the heat. I don't like pooping in a bucket or whatever, all these things, But then, but that's fine, because there are paleontologists who can make incredible discoveries, in a chemistry lab or sitting in front of a computer doing, computational biomechanics, which is basically using computer modeling to understand, muscular strengths of animals and then what their capabilities would have been, et cetera, et cetera. So there's like lots of different ways to science. So just because one way may not work for you, it's important to recognize there's lots of other ways you could explore. So get experience. That's the number one thing. And then the second thing is that it's really important for people to be prepared for what they're getting into. So I always make the point that, academia, which is like, being a curator or a professor and actually doing scientific research, it's not for everyone. And you can still be a paleontologist and not do research. So that's also important. You can work in a prep lab, or you can be a museum educator or a science writer. You can still be involved in science and paleontology and not be an academic, because academic's not for everyone. It's pretty gnarly. It's not a nice place because, unfortunately, science is not very valued by American society. Like this is something we hope to improve, by doing outreach like this. But because science isn't valued, there's not a lot of money in it. And so it's highly competitive. And this drives people to behavior that is kind of, it's tough to deal with for some people. And I always tell everyone openly and honestly, first couple times I got papers back from review, the peer review process is how we get our science out. I cried because people were so mean and unfair. Like, it's one, like you send your paper out for review and they're supposed to be like, oh yeah, this research is good or this research is bad or you missed this reference or something like that. But the peer review should help make your paper better. But people would just say things that weren't even true just to get your paper rejected because they're just highly competitive. And it really yeah, like I cried, and my advisor was like so like uncomfortable because like he's, just like, not, that's not his personality. And he just like didn't know what to do. And he was just like, it's okay. Like, oh. But the thing is like, so some people, like I've had a lot of friends in grad school who are like, yep, I don't like this. Academia is not for me. I don't want to have this type of life, like working 12 hours a day and that kind of thing. So I'm out. And that's fine. I respect that. But, for me, I was like, I rose to the challenge and I was like, oh yeah, so yeah, but that's not for everyone. So that's an important point to make, I think. But yeah, and then what other advice I have? I guess just, make sure that it's what you love, because, you don't want to go into science if it's not your passion, because, I think, again, it's just important for people to know what they're getting into. You can make a lot more money in other fields, I mean, I think, the desire for money and capitalism in general is what's destroying this planet and creating this mass extinction. But at the same time, you need to be prepared for the fact that you're not going to be able to afford certain things that capitalism is telling everybody that we should be able to afford and want, So again, I think, it's just really important to have a really holistic view of science, of what it means to do science, so that, there's no curveballs that come out at you when you're like halfway through your PhD or something.
That's very insightful. I really appreciated hearing about that, and I liked what you said about there being a lot of different paths to science. So could you tell us a little bit about your path and how you ended up where you are now?
I'm kind of an odd duck out when it comes to paleontologists anyways, because you're probably like most paleontologists have known that they love dinosaurs and other extinct animals like since a very early age, right? Are you does this maybe like, are you vibing with that a little bit?
I am guilty of this, yes.
Exactly. Like I have literally never met anyone else who was like me. Yeah, like okay, that's not true. One person said that they were like also got into it late. So yeah, I joke, I'm like late to the party, like everyone else is like love dinosaurs or extinct animals since they were young or since they saw Jurassic Park. That's another very common one that I hear. They're like, I saw Jurassic Park and I wanted to be a paleontologist. And I'm like, but what about Jurassic Park is like what actual paleontologists do? But anyway, so I was one of these kids who like didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was a really bad student because I was unmotivated. I didn't have a passion. I mean, I wanted to be an artist, but being an artist, so like, yeah, I mean, I got A's in art, but like in all the other classes, like one teacher said, what did she say about me? She said, Jingmai, she did exactly as much as she needed to do to get a B and nothing more. And I was like, yes, because a B was enough that my mom would be mad at me, but not kill me. Like, sorry, Chinese mom. But yeah, so I was a bad student because I wasn't passionate about anything. I wasn't, excited. I had no interest in learning. And I think about that now and I'm like, ew, like learning is so fun, so exciting, but like how do you ignite that passion, that desire to learn in somebody who doesn't have it? And if I knew the answer to that question, I think we could like, change the world. But anyway, so I didn't know what I wanted to do, but then my mom, I grew up pretty poor. My dad was an artist, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so we didn't have any money. And when I was nine years old, my mom decided she's got to go back to school to get a job to help support the family. And, she's got 4 kids and we're like trying to kill each other and like just screaming and fighting and not studying and getting bad grades. It's just like not easy children. That's what I'm trying to get at. And she still was like studying relentlessly for the GRE while taking care of us, making dinner, driving us to violin lessons, all that stuff. And she ends up getting in the top 1 percentile GRE score. And so that opened all these doors to her. And so last minute, she's like, I'm not going to go be a social worker, which is a good job, but, not what she was passionate about. She's like, I'm going to follow my passion. I'm going to do geology. So from the age 10 to 13, my mom was doing a PhD in geology and she dragged us along for the ride. So like, we would go on field trips with her when she was TAing, with all the like USC, football kids in the Roxford jock classes and stuff. And she would take us out to do field work with her. She took us to the laboratory. She like literally would just give us cups of liquid nitrogen and be like, go play. Like, don't hurt yourself. She used to give us like glass and blowtorches too, but we hurt ourselves. So that was, that put an end to that one. But yeah, it would just like freeze bananas and liquid nitrogen and then smash it with a rock hammer. It was fun. But yeah, so I was really exposed to geology. And I think, when you know something and you feel confident in it, then you tend to like it more, right? So because I knew geology, I yeah, I'm not saying I liked it, but I was just because I was good at it. I felt confident. And then my mom, when she graduated, she's in her 40s, so she couldn't get into academia. That's just too hard at that age. But she became a teacher, which is her life's passion now. And she would teach community college. And again, we needed money, so she would teach summer courses. And if not enough students enroll, then then the class gets canceled. So she was like, Jingmai, like in high school, like you gotta take this college level geology class. And I was like, okay. So so I knew geology. So when I went to college, I was like, I'm gonna be a geologist. But it was like this thing where I was like, I didn't have a passion. I was just like, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to do geology. And then, like, it all changed for me my first year, because I got to skip all the intro classes because I had taken them from my mom. And so I took a class called historical geology, which is also sometimes called evolution of the planet, but it takes you from the Big Bang and like how the universe forms, how galaxies, solar systems, planets form. And then it's like, all right, now let's do the history of Earth. Now that you've learned how Earth formed, let's go from Earth's history from when it formed to modern day. So of course that story involves the appearance of life on our planet and how it evolved through time. And I just got obsessed. I just thought like evolution is the coolest, most interesting, most complicated, crazy thing. If you look at life on our planet now, and to think that all life on our planet has a common ancestor that was some single-celled organism, and then how from that you have this diversity, this beautiful, complex diversity on our planet. I got hooked. And if you're a geologist and you want to study evolution, you do so through the lens of paleontology. And I think that works for me, actually, because I'm a little, not squeamish, but I don't really like killing animals to learn about them. I know somebody's got to do it. I'm not trying to be like, boo, like biologists, you got it. Somebody's got to do it, but it's not for me. So this way I get to study evolution through things that are already dead, that have been dead for millions and millions of years, and are by this like incredible chance fossilized and brought to the surface of the earth so that we can find it and then like learn about animals that lived 300 million years ago. Or to me, that's just, I really found my niche. I found my passion. And then I suddenly enjoyed studying. I suddenly enjoyed learning, and I suddenly had, it ignited this thirst for knowledge in me that, has gotten me where I am today. I'll just briefly tell you why I chose studying birds. I was in college and I'm just like, I want to be a paleontologist. But, if you've loved extinct animals, fossils, since a young age, you probably have had a long time to think about which group of organisms you like the most, right? But for me, I'm just like, all paleontology is cool. And I always joke that I'm a equal opportunity extinct animal enthusiast. I love them all. Except then I always joke it except graptolites, and except that's totally a geology joke. So you're probably like, what? And I don't even know how to describe what a graptolite is to anybody. So, but they're just like these really boring little tiny fossils. Anyways, so when I applied for grad school, I applied to work on all different things. Like I applied to be an invertebrate paleontologist and study crinoids because crinoids are cool. And I also applied to work on coprolites, like fossil poop, because I don't know, I thought poop was cool. That sounds really weird. And then my personal favorite are actually marine reptiles. I just think they're so elegant for some reason. Just something just really attracts me to them. So I applied to work on marine reptiles. And then I applied to USC, where I ended up going, and I could have worked on fossil mammals, which is what I did for my undergrad research, or I could work on birds. And so in the end, I chose to work on birds because I thought, well, I've made the impractical decision to be a paleontologist, to follow my passion, which I highly recommend people do. But at the same time, it's a very competitive field. It's very difficult to succeed. So I thought, well, then I must make the practical choice in what I study. And, there were all these fossil birds pouring out of China. The diversity of Mesozoic birds probably has doubled since I got into paleontology 20 years ago. So it's just a rapidly growing field. And so I thought, if I study birds, that this will give me a better chance of being a successful paleontologist. Actually, at the time, I really didn't like birds. I was like, I had been attacked by this rooster when I was doing field work, studying mammals in China. And because I'm this city slicker girl, and we're staying with these Mongolians in Inner Mongolia, and they have all these farm animals, and I'm like, oh, and I got too close to the rooster or one of the chickens, and the rooster just started attacking me. And then every time he saw me, he would just go after me. And like, at one point, it had rained and there was this really fine mud, and this, like, I see the rooster ahead and I'm like, oh, I'm like trying to hang back, but I'm like, at a certain point I got to go by him. So I gave him like the widest berth I could. And as soon as he sees me, he just starts chasing me, and I'm like, ah, and I'm running and I slip in the mud. And then every time I tried to stand up, I'd slip back into the mud. And at this point now the rooster's just attacking me, and I like had my sweatshirt and I'm like beating him off, and like all my colleagues are just laughing, and like one of them finally like strolls over and just goes bonk and just like kicks the rooster away. I mean, I still feel bad for that rooster, but yeah, I was just like, birds are jerks. And like, yeah, I just didn't really, birds are everywhere. I mean, if you think about it, you see more birds than you see any other group of animal. Like, I mean, how many mammals do you see? You see like squirrels and rats, but like, you see geese and crows and sparrows and like so many different dinosaurs out there, but and now that I study them, I think they're fascinating. I love them now, and it really blows my mind that I wasn't fascinated by them before. But I also think that regardless of what path I'd gone down, I would have fallen in love with whatever organism I started studying.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I really think I learned a lot, and I hope everyone else did too. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. And I think you are a very promising student, and I wish you the best in your endeavors to become a paleontologist. You have the talent, you have the intelligence, and you have the passion. So that's the winning combo.